and catches up with me. Hi, good morning. I realize it is not morning for most of y'all. How's it going? I'm struggling a little bit right now, not gonna lie. And I'm shiny because I forgot to put on powder. It's okay. Hi. So today we're gonna be working on FAQs. So FAQs, frequently asked questions, are a way to handle a variety of intents. That with me. Oh, whoops. Hi. There we go. I'll stop the horrible echo. Someone says, are we gonna do the numbers as inputs? Probably not today. Maybe, but probably not. Sometimes I'm wrong about what we do in a day. Well, I mean, it's live coding, right? It's gonna change as we work through stuff. Rasa docs. So first of all, let's pull up the FAQ stuff. I will say I have not built FAQs in the 2.0 framework. So we're gonna be doing this for the first time together. Let's pop that open. Alrighty, alrighty. Little Control K, FAQ. Nope, Q. There we go. All right. So FAQ assistants are the simplest assistants to build. That's good to know. What if you were slightly more out of the photo, and also I'm getting some graininess? Well, that's not ideal. What about this one? Will this one be better? Nope, that one has graininess too. I wonder if I want to spend some time fixing it right now. I feel like I probably don't. Anyway, hi. Like I mentioned, I'm a little bit all over the place today. Lots going on in life in the world. And it's taking up a lot of brain space. So FAQ assistants, very simple. Great. I'm feeling very simple today. And are typically the first kind of assistant anyone's builds. So for me, this assistant is going to be something that answers questions that I personally, as Rachel, get a lot. Nope, it's bothering me too much. I'm gonna fix it real quick. Filter. I should have a filter on here. There we go. One filter. Oh, it's green. Smoothness looks good. Opacity looks good. Huh. Weird. Okay, no, the filter looks fine in the filter view. It's still just a little bit noisy. Anyway. Let's just read through the docs and then do the things that the docs say to do, and then it'll work. So FAQs and chit chats are two cases. The conversational assistant responds with a fixed set of messages, and the assistant should always answer the same way, no matter what has happened previously in the conversation. So in terms of the flow of a conversation, right? People say different things. Some things that you say might depend on things that were said previously, right? So imagine you have an assistant that's working, people are using for banking, and they're like, hey, what's my balance? And they have a checking account and a savings account, and the answer to what's my balance is going to depend on the rest of the conversation, right? Were you most recently talking about the checking account or the savings account? The FAQs in the chit chat should always be the same. So what type of accounts are available, that would be something that you wouldn't need to look at the rest of the conversation to figure out. That's information that is stable across the conversation. And then, if you offer a new type of account, you could add that to the response for that. And then here are some examples. So this is with Sarah, which is the assistant that we have in the Rasa docs. In the legacy version of the Rasa docs, maybe? It looks like she's not here right now. I'm also zoomed way in, so it could be that. Anyway, so a bunch of different examples of questions where the answer to the question is always going to be the same, not dependent on the whole conversation. Hello, Asaba. And hello, Sifu Fried Rice. Nice to have you on the stream. All right, so this is done using rules. Rules are new in Rasa 2.0. So the way that the assistant decides what to do next usually involves a machine learning policy that you specify that is trained using the stories that are included with your assistant. And it's probabilistic. So it's going to pick the thing that's most likely to occur next, but it's not like strictly rule bound. For rules, you would use them when you always want X to happen after Y, right? When you have like a specific, if all of these objectives are fulfilled, or if, like you've had this intent and you have this information, always do this. So we recommend that you use rules a little bit sparingly. If you use too many rules, it can make your conversations brittle and like break a little bit. So little sprinkle rules, but for FAQs, it makes sense because if somebody asks a question, you always want to give them the same answer. All right, so I'm gonna pop this down. And we are using a version of the Rasa Playground Assistant that we modified on stream last week, 2 days ago. Ooh, it's been some time, huh? And we are going to adopt this to answer some questions that I get a lot, and I actually have written down some questions. And all right. So here are some questions that we have that I want to be able to answer for people. How can I get started in machine learning? How can I get started in NLP? How can I get started with Rasa? How can I get started with Kaggle? And can you be my mentor? So these are questions that I get a lot. And I want my assistant to be able to answer them to make my life easier. All right, so first thing we want to do, config.yaml, make sure that we have the rule policy. And I believe that we do because this assistant uses forms. Yep, so you can see right here under policies, we have the rule policy. So the NLU pipeline here is what, takes the language input and turns it into numbers, basically. And then the policies are how your assistant decides what to say next. So we want to make sure that, hey, we've got some rules, use those rules when they're applicable. Back. All right, check. Next, include the response selector in your NLU pipeline in your configurations file. The response selector requires a featureizer and intent classifier to work, so it should come after these components in your pipeline. So I mentioned a couple times that the specific thing that you are the specific things that you include in your pipeline are going to depend on what your what models you're using. Right? So you want to make sure that the transformations that are done to the raw data at the time when you're using the model are the same transformations that were done at the time that the model was trained. How do you know what transformations were done to the data when the model was trained? It's in the docs. And if you're, training a custom featureizer, then you know what happened, right? So I believe we already have this all set up. So this says white space tokenizer, check. Regex featureizer, checks. Lexical syntactic featureizer, check. Count vector featureizer, check. Counter vector featureizer, character web, check. Diet classifier, entity synonym mapper, and then response selector. So the pipeline that we have in the docs is the exact pipeline that we are using here in our assistant. So we should be good to go for our rules. By default, the response selector will build a single retrieval model for all retrieval intents. So intents that's just like, look it up, please. Look it up in my list of things that I know about. To retrieve responses from FAQs and chit-chat separately, use multiple response selector components and specify the retrieval intent key. So chit-chat would be just like, people experimenting with the bot, saying like, what's your name, what's the weather where you are, that sort of, small talk stuff. And I don't mind that those are going to be handled the same as FAQs. Rohit says, I tried to deploy my Rasa chatbot on a Docker container, but the action server was not getting started. So you'll need a second Docker container for your action server. Yeah, I would maybe post your Docker images in a question on the Rasa forums to get like more detailed feedback. Abhishek says, can you suggest a free hosting service that will host my Rasa bot with action server? I mean, if you have an action server, you're a little bit more limited because just the size of the Docker images and the fact that you have 2 of them. If it is very small, you can maybe fit it in a free Heroku instance, but the free Heroku shards are tiny. Yeah. Or I think Python Anywhere might work. unless you have a Duckling server, because I believe Python Anywhere does not support Haskell. Or you can, I mean, just run it from a laptop and just keep the laptop on. Not the most sustainable answer, but if it's just for sort of like playing around, that could work for you. Here's one says, sometimes I insert something meaningless and the Rasa ends up returning the intention bot challenge. How can I just adjust to fall into feedback? So you can, if bot challenge is identified with a relatively low threshold, you can increase the threshold that you need to get past before you hit the fallback intent. The other thing you can do is you could add something like an out of scope intent that has like random characters in it to catch things when people are just like key smashing, if that's the problem that you're running into. Yeah, and Robbie says try DigitalOcean, so that could work. All right. Blah, 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 response selector, and specify the retrieval intent key. Okay, and I don't want to do this separately, so I'm just going to ignore this section. Defining retrieval intents and the Rasa and the response selector. Consider an example where you have 20 different FAQs, so 20 different questions that people ask. For our little beginner example here, we have 5. Although each question is represented as an individual intent, all FAQ intents are handled the same way in the dialogue. For each FAQ intent, the assistant retrieves the proper response depending on which question has been asked. So it's basically just looking it up. Instead of writing 20 rules, you can use a single action, e.g. utter FAQ, to handle all FAQs with a single rule by grouping them together under a single retrieval intent called FAQ. So you wouldn't want to use a retrieval intent if, for example, someone's like, I had like more complex questions here. So like maybe I asked, hey, would you like, how can I get started in machine learning? That's what the person asks, and then my system's like, oh, do you like books or courses, or like what's your favorite medium for learning? And then we had like a multiple step process, and a retrieval intent might not be the best choice for that, because you're probably going to want to set a slot and then use that slot to determine what the next course of action should be. The single action uses the output of the response selector to return the correct response for the specific FAQ that the user asked. So right now the response selector is being used for the form, and the form that we are using in here is, we are not going to keep this, but it asks for the email of the user so that they can subscribe to the newsletter. And we're not doing like a newsletter subscription. It's just, this is the example that we're building off of and changing. All right, create rules. You need to write only one rule for each retrieval intent, so you don't need a separate one for every question, just for the one broad example. All intents grouped under that retrieval intent will then be handled in the same way. The action name starts with the utter underscore and ends with the retrieval intent's name. Write rules for responding to FAQs and chit chat. So, I'm going to add this to my rules. And I believe, okay, yeah, and then we're going to update the training data. So let's do that. And what I don't have, so I'm missing a lot of parts here to make this work. So I don't have, is that right? Nope. Is that right? Nope. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Okay. So I'm just checking my, my indentation is consistent. So I don't have an intent called FAQ. If we look at my domain file, here are all the intents that I have here. So right now this rule will never be triggered because that intent will never be identified. And I think if I try to train my assistant right now, it's just going to throw an error because it's going to be like, what is this FAQ you speak of? I've never heard of it. The actions utter FAQ and utter chit chat will use the response selector's prediction to return the actual response message. And we don't have chit chat, we only have FAQ in this assistant. Update the training example. Okay, so this is an example of what this is going to look like, and the thing to notice here is that the retrieval intent here is chit chat, right? So if we look at this intent, chit chat, and then here are the different things that people can ask about. So what's your name? What's the weather? So we're going to have a retrieval intent called FAQ, and then we're going to have the different questions that people ask. So I'm just going to copy, I don't need to copy that. Just type it. So let's go to our NLU. And I got a couple of examples. So, so our intent is FAQ. Which way did the slash go? It goes that way. And what were my questions again? Already forgotten. Ooh. All right. How can I get started in ML? So I'm just going to call this ML and then some examples. And then a pipe. And oh my god, typing is so hard. How can I get started in ML? What are some good resources for learning about deep learning? Can you recommend machine learning stuff? I don't know. Okay, so that's one intent. And then we're gonna add another one, and this one's gonna be FAQ. And I wanna call it FAQ because that's what it's called in my rules. See, intent FAQ. So it's a retrieval intent, and it's gonna include all of the things that we talk about here. NLP, that capitalized. Make it all lowercase. I think that looks a little bit tidier. And let's add some examples. EAM, PLES, and then a pipe, and a dash. What's a good NLP course? How should I learn NLP? How can I get started in NLP? So just some different ways that people might ask this. And then I'm going to add one more intent, FAQ, Rasa, examples. How can I learn to build a chatbot? How to build a, how to make a chatbot? How to use Rasa? I need help with Rasa. So let's just start with 3, just to make sure that we have everything working good, and then we can add more later. So we have our NLU data. Have I saved this? I have. Okay, good. And then we need to update the domain file to add our intent. So let's do that. Thank you. All right, check. And then defining the responses. Okay, so this is going to be in our domain file as well, and we're going to do utter and then the response retrieval intent name. So here chit chat for us, it's going to be FAQ, and then the thing that they asked about. Oh, I think actually it should be ask underscore. You know what? I'm going to do that because I think that makes more sense. So what I'm saying here is I'm going to say FAQ ask underscore ML. I don't know that it needs to have ask as a prefix, ask underscore. It might need it, but I think it also makes sense because I am answering questions. Does that make sense? All right, and then in the domain, we're going to add some responses. So utter underscore FAQ, because it's a thing, and then under FAQ, and then the specific question. Sorry, I'm just looking at the documentation in another tab. So we had ask underscore ML, and then we're gonna have the response. So what do I usually say to people here? If you want to learn about deep learning, the fast.ai course, you could try the fast.ai course, or what are the Kaggle ones called? Kaggle Learn? Pretty sure. Yep. or Kaggle learn. Ooh, yep, no. Yep, okay, and then the Fast.ai course. And I'd say the Kaggle learn is more bite-sized pieces, and Fast.ai is more I don't know. Basically, they walk you through best practices for building deep learning systems. All right, so the next one, utter FAQ. I don't know why I can't type Qs. Ask NLP text. I'd recommend the book Speech and Language Processing. I don't think that's how you spell language. I think that's right, language. Speech and language processing. And then I'll include a link. Speech and language processing. And this is by Draftsky and Martin. And then the PDF is available online. Or tidy text. Tidy text book. So, speech and language processing is more sort of a textbook, and then the tidy textbook is more like a walkthrough. So, all right, and then the last one was how do I get started with Rasa? Utter FAQ. Ask_Rasa, and then what I will say to that. There's a free Udemy course for getting started with Rasa. Udemy, Rasa for beginners. I'm pretty sure it's called Rasa for beginners. But also I have no brain right now. So yeah, this is the one. It's one by Maddie. Maddie is a I think developer or like evangelist is her job title. Or you can check out the Rasa Masterclass, which I think we have a I think we have a a landing page for it now, which is pretty nice. Isn't that nice? You can download the book, you can get you know, all the material in one place. So I really like the masterclass. I realize that it is not covering 2.0. We know. Okay, so what is our next step? Back to the docs. So we have our responses. Summary, once you've done the following, you can train your bot and try it out. So we added the rule policy, check. We added at least one rule, check. We added examples, check. We added responses, check. We updated the intents, check. All right, let's try it out. So I believe I've saved everything. That looks right. Ba-ba-ba. Wish me luck. Oh, it's not going to do anything. I'm going to get an error because I should actually be in this project file. Give it a second to give me the error. Actually, I don't think I need to. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what you want from me, project. And then I should also Honda activate fresh. I also need to activate the Honda environment where I have everything installed that I need, which I believe is called fresh Rasa install _2 on my system. You can call yours whatever you want. And now Rasa train should work. Okay. Mapping values are not allowed here. Do you just checker? Right. We've got a syntax error. Aha. We sure do. Okay, so you can see that the indent there was a little bit off. So that should be correct now. Let's try that again. Oh, and that was, I just did up arrow to do Rasa train again. Key example was not defined. Failed to validate data in LU. Please make sure the file is correct and all mandatory parameters are specified. Here are the errors. Example was not defined. Intent was not defined. All right. Ooh. Aha. Okay. It's because I'm, again, not typing examples instead of example. Do I have any errors? Okay. Problems fixed. Fantastic. And now our model's training, and I can check in with the chat. All right. Scrolling way back up. Rohit says, I tried to make an API call to formulate a response. The API was taking too long, hence Rasa was giving the default reply. Yeah, like it was timing out. Yeah, if you have an action that's long running, you can send like an intermediate response to just like, working on it. It's happening. Please don't restart my session or whatever. I think Facebook in particular has like a default timeout of, I want to say 200 milliseconds. Do not quote me on that. All right. Robbie says you could ask about Halloween. I could. Halloween is tomorrow, but I'm not going to. What's the best algorithm? Personal question, like people have different preferences. And the example is the new clause introduced in 2.0 and what is the significance? Clause. So like the way to handle FAQs. So we did have a way to handle FAQs and chit chat in 1.0, but it was separate from you know, other things that were rule-based. So the big change in 2.0 is this rules structure. So everything that you like, you dictate what happens, you know, if X then Y, is now contained in one place. So that includes forms if you're collecting a bunch of slots. That includes FAQs and chit chat. So always look this up. That includes like other, you know, arbitrary rules that you want to set. So instead of having those be like in various different places, they're all contained and together and in one place. Can I put the links in the FAQs? Yep, of course. Line 47, you have a typo. Oh, thank you. If I checked the chat before I tried to train, I would have gotten feedback about that. Maybe Abhishek says, so you could treat these different things that people are asking about as entities. I could, but right now, all of my FAQs are kind of parallel to each other. As I continue to expand my FAQs, they're going to be less and less parallel to each other. But I want to treat them all in the same way just by looking up the answer. So that's my, you know, that's my reasoning behind not using slots for this. Whereas if I was just sort of like looking up content to recommend, I probably would use slots. Robbie says Quantita is far better than tidy text. I really like tidy text. I know that some people really like Quantita. I will say I do not prefer it personally. I don't mean these are recommendations from me as an individual, so I think it makes sense to, you know, for them to be things that are to my personal taste. Robbie says you can use YAML-lint. Good to know. And Pan says, or maybe Pan, can I run a custom action instead of a simple response with the response selector? So I would do, if you always want the, like if you always want a action to be run after a specific intent, then you could do that with a rule, or you could just have that in your stories as like this person does this intent and then this action happens. The difference between that is that in the stories, there's some probability that it's not going to happen next. So you know, it's not always going to be necessarily exactly the same. Whereas in rules, it's always going to be exactly the same. So you have less flexibility with rules. Robbie says, Quantita is faster. I mean, so the question is, what's the best thing if I'm just like getting started in NLU? And I will say that the docs for Quantita are not to the level of the ones for Tidy Text. The ones for Tidy Text, like, the book is fantastic. It's designed to be extremely approachable. The support's really good. So, yeah. Talk Tom says, does Rasa use the transformer architecture for text generation, or is it retrieval? So we do not. I don't recommend using neural text generation and then serving it to users. We do, however, use transformers, and we use transformers in a couple of places. So I'm using just sort of kind of a default pipeline here. So the diet classifier does multitask learning to extract the entities and the intents, and that is done with transformers. And then this TED policy selects the next response, and that is a transformer-based policy as well. So for my general recommendation is to write the responses yourself, and then, use like slot filling. So, if I want to say what specific, just show you an example. I think it's in domain. Yeah. So for example, if I have something like this, I want to say, hey, your email was subscribed. I can use the email slot to generate the text. And that's like a little bit of generation, but mostly I would say I would recommend handwriting responses for the majority of things that you would build a Rasa assistant to do. So, yeah, let's give it a shot. And I'm going to try the shell, and if it's working well, I might actually try Rasa X today as well. I may have to update Rasa X in this Conda environment. We'll find out. Starting a server, that's fantastic. So right now our assistant has a bunch of stuff about subscribing to a newsletter that I'm going to need to like remove. How can I get start in ML? So this is something that was not in our training data, but you can see that it's being identified as somebody wants to know about ML, and then I have the links here. I guess actually the Kaggle one isn't just deep learning, so I'm gonna about machine learning in general. All right, there we go. Yeah, so are you a bot? So this should start the bot challenge. They should be like, yep, I'm a bot powered by Rasa. Didn't happen though. Interesting. Okay, let's just restart and see if that'll work then. Why is the bot challenge not working? This is just water today, it's not coffee. I do not need help with my anxiety right now. It's good, it's working very good. TikTok says, do you know any ways of generating code like GPT-3? Because I'm working on a paper called Code Captioning, similar to image captioning. I wouldn't, is my general, I think. Like, you can do it, you can just like, with GPT-3, for example, you would seed it with like something that looks like code, and it'll keep generating stuff that looks like code. I think that the security and reliability risks are so great that I personally would not. Are you a bot? That's what we were checking. I'm a bot powered by Rasa. Hi. And then we should be able to start our conversation about I don't have a newsletter. This is just what the default assistant was built for. So fake example Great. Fantastic. And your machine learning course is totally different. How to deploy Rasa on Azure. I have not done that, but I believe that there's a deployment guide in the docs. I think they talk about Azure. Pretty sure. Sorry if anything offensive. Oh, not at all. That's just, I don't recommend it. Like, you can try, but I think you're gonna get yourself into trouble sooner or later. All right, so that's working pretty good. Let's keep adding FAQs so that I can get through my little mini list, which I have lost. There it is. Okay. How can I get started with can you be my mentor? So here's an example of something that is pretty different, and I get asked kind of a lot. And I'm just going to copy this so that I don't do example wrong again. Okay, that's not what I wanted you to do, though. There we go. Okay. And then ask mentor, can you be my mentor? Do you mentor people? Can you guide me? How can I be your student? And I get this question a lot, and it's always, you know, I'm happy that people, you know, find me trustworthy and want to learn from me, but I just don't have capacity to mentor everybody who asks me. Okay, so let's add this. And you can see here, I don't need to add new intents for each of these, right? I can just continue to use this, this retrieval intent FAQ, and I don't have to go back and edit my domain and keep adding intents for all of these different questions that people would ask. I don't have capacity to take on any mentees right now. Sorry. If you have a quick question, you can reach out to me on Twitter at RCTapman or ask on the forums or Kaggle forums. I still get a lot of questions about Kaggle, and I'm like, oh man, I don't work there anymore. All right, I feel like I had a typo. I did. I had an extra step here. Okay, and then I had one more. Oh, right, about getting started in. Save this. One more about getting started in Kaggle, which is another one that I get asked a lot. If you're not familiar, Kaggle is a machine learning website. They're best known for hosting competitions, but they also have like dataset hosting. They have a hosted coding environment, and I used to work there, so I get a fair number of questions. Can you help me with Kaggle? How do I do Kaggle competitions? I don't know. What else do people tend to ask me? Mostly that. How to start Kaggling, that sort of thing. Okay. And then back to my domain. How do I respond to this? The best place for questions about Kaggle is the Kaggle forums. And a link. Kaggle forum. or you could try Kaggle Noobs, which is a user run group. Oh, which I'm not finding on a quick. There we go. Okay. And I'll just, there's a link on the Kaggle forums about how to add the Slack. Okay. So I think those are the first questions that I had. And let's get rid of the things that are no longer useful for us. So I'm going to get rid of this form. Don't need it. Gonna get rid of these parts in the rules that are all about submitting the form, because again, I don't need it. I don't want to be collecting people's emails. I don't need them. And also that's just like a lot of goodbye, get rid of that. Also, that's just a lot of GDPR overhead that why would I do that as an individual? It's not necessary for me. Subscribe, get rid of that. Slots. I'm just gonna leave this empty. I might need that later. All right, that should be everything in the domain and the config. Let's check the NLU, make sure I've gotten rid of everything. Pretty sure I haven't. There we go. Get rid of you. I might keep in form because I might use that intent for something else. So I'm probably gonna go back and redo it if I need to. And then stories is the other one I'm going to need to update. So I'm going to say greet and questions, I guess. Actually, no, I'm just going to have greet because the FAQs should handle more. And then I'm actually going to change what happens in the domain. There we go. So instead of just saying hi, I'm going to say, what questions do you have? So that the people who are using the assistant know that the way that they use the assistant is that they ask questions to it. So let me kill that. There we go. And then we're going to do Rasa shell one more time to make sure it works. And then we can pop open Rasa X because we've got a little bit of time. And I'll check the chat while it's launching. Hi, Marco. All right. How to train Rasa using Google Colab's Jupyter Notebooks. So Rasa is predominantly a command line tool, but you could use the SDK to interact with it using Python code. So that would be the way that you do that. In general, you run it in the command line. And the things that you would train in like a Jupyter Notebook would be like specific models or featureizers or things that you would add to your pipeline. Chipo says, do you have any resources that I could use to deploy Rasa Assistant that's free? I want to create and share one with a few friends for them to use. So if it's very small, a lot of like cloud hosting providers will give you like a small amount of credit to start out with. So that might be enough if you just like for a couple folks to cover your initial startup costs. Is there any way to connect CSV or Excel data set in Rasa? So the way that you'd probably want to do that would be to create a custom action that interacted with the, your CSV and look things up. So yes, and you're going to need a custom action to do it. There's no like really default way to do it just with the chat portion of the assistant. Tech Tom says, let's say I give a Rasa about one sentence, data about whether it can generate new sentences similar to the context of the given data. Or it simply trains it with the given data. Oh, so you're saying for the training data, can you generate new sentences from a given sentence, like paraphrasing? Let me see. I know this is something that the research team has looked into. Yeah, so it's an experimental feature right now. So yes, you can do that. And I'm going to see if I can find a link for you real quick. Rasa paraphrasing It might be in 1.10 rather than 2.0. I don't know off the top of my head. But let me share the link to the experimental feature so you can check it out if you are interested. And that is going to be in the YouTube chat. Whoop. Any views on Julia? I know lots of people that like it. I'm honestly not doing enough numerical computing these days to want to spend a lot of time to learn another language. Also, the last time I looked at Julia, the string, and I will say this was like 2017, 2016, the string handling for like text data was abysmal. Like it only handled ASCII characters, which is clearly insufficient for modern NLP, because sometimes languages have non-ASCII characters in them, like the majority of languages do. So I haven't checked on it for a while. Seems cool, seems fast. That's neat. The bot's waiting. Yeah, I see. I'm just going through the chat now, so I have make sure I'm answering everyone's question. How can I get a particular user input from Rasa and send the details to a Django server? So the way you would do that is that you would ask for it with a slot. You would extract it. I'd probably use Duckling to extract things like phone numbers that you know are going to follow, you know, a similar set of rules, and then store that slot, and it'll be stored in, you know, your Rasa server, and then you would, you know, pass it back and forth. All right. Let's start with talking with our assistant. Let's see how it goes. So hi. How do you do deep learning? What's Kaggle? Oh, interesting. Okay, so it identified that intent, the intent of what's Kaggle, as, hey, I want to learn more about Rasa, which not my intent there. I actually did want to learn what's Rasa. Actually, that's a question I get a lot. Let's add one more FAQ and then see if we can launch our Rasa X server. Intent. I'm just gonna copy and paste. Like, I should have learned my lesson by now, but no. So I'm gonna change this to Rasa Learn, and then I'm gonna change this to Rasa. What's Rasa? What can I do with Rasa? And then really quick, in my domain, ask Rasa learn. And then here, utter FAQ. Q means ask underscore Rasa. Text. Rasa is a software company that builds tools to help make, maintain, and improve chatbots. There we go. And so the reason I say mostly for your open source tools is that if you are a business and you have a chatbot that you're using for your business, we have a tool called Rasa X Enterprise Edition, which is designed to help you improve assistants over time and maintain them and have like a whole team of people working on them and handle like your data versioning and your model versioning and your, you know, CI/CD and all of the things that matter at the enterprise scale. So if you are working for a company and you're building a chatbot, might be something you want to look into. Our sales team will be happy to talk to you. All right. So I think it's working okay. And I'm going to add what's Kaggle as an example. So for one thing, if I was doing this in Rasa X, I could just correct that that was in fact asking about Kaggle and not Rasa. There we go. And add it to my training data and then retrain all in the interface. So I have not tried Rasa X in this environment since my upgrade to Rasa 2.0, so we'll see if it works. Oh, first of all, there's a space between Rasa and X, so that's step 1, is to do it right. Let's see. Rasa X does not seem to be installed, but it is needed for the CLI command. You can find more information on how to install Rasa X in local mode in the documentation, blah, blah, blah. All right, so I think what we will do next Friday is we will install Rasa X and go through that. And it shouldn't take that long. What's today? It's 30th, right? Next Friday, installing Rasa X and getting started. So we'll just work with Rasa X and improve our assistant a little bit. And maybe I'll be able to share the assistant at that point so y'all can ask some questions. All right. Back to the chat. Julia is the only language which supports Unicode typing. I think other languages support Unicode. Like Python 3 definitely does. Can I get your mail? Probably the easiest way is to if you need to contact me specifically, probably the easiest way is on Twitter. And I also have a website. It's rctatman at .com. at .com. There has a lack of libraries. I mean, it's a young language. I mean, R has been around since. See, S was developed in like the 90s, and it was developed from R. Or R was developed from S, so like it's, you know, it's been around a while. Are there any ways to connect a custom machine model with Rasa, like any model? Yeah, actually, I have an example. Here's one I made earlier. This one. So what we've been doing in Livecoding for the last little bit is, here's the README, creating a model, creating an assistant that lets you take a quiz. And then when you're done taking the quiz, it takes all your answers and it runs it through a machine learning model. And I do that using an actions folder. So what I have here is a pickled model. In this case, it's a, I know it's Python VS Code. So here I have a pickled model. And then I have just like my requirements. And then here I have, I'm doing my data normalization in sort of a weird way, but here I have an empty data structure with all of the features that I need that my model to eventually have, so that when I do my one-hot encoding, it can have the correct number of dimensions and the right things can be in those dimensions. And the basic idea is that this action server is a way that you can run any code that you need to run. And so what it's doing is it is loading in this sample data set so I can get the right dimensions. It is taking in the input data from the assistant has collected, and then doing the encoding. And then I am loading in this this pickled model and I'm applying it and getting my result out, and then I tell people that result. And to run this particular set of actions, it's under this class called detect dialect, which is an action. And the way that I say, hey, this is when it should happen is nope, stories. I have this story. So if people say they want to take the quiz, we run through the quiz, they answer a bunch of questions. And then I tell them, hey, here's all your question answers. And then I run this action and call this code and run my model. And then that sets a slot. So if I here we go. So it sets this slot dialect to be this output dialects that is based on my classifier running. And then it uses an utterance to say, here's the results of what our model ran. So yes, you can just run arbitrary code using Rasa, and it is like so. It doesn't have to be a machine learning model. That just happens to be what I had. I don't think I'm more popular than Justin Bieber in India, Ravi, but thank you. That's very kind to say. Supports emoji typing. Julia does. That's cool. I mean, Unicode, emojis are part of Unicode, so I would hope that they do. Seafood Friday Dry says, thanks for the live stream. Thanks for joining. R is much older than Python. Yes, that is true. R has been around for, again, a while. Python is a copycat, nothing else. Well, I mean, so Python was designed to be a teaching language. It was designed to be easy to learn and easy to use, and I think that that's a really wonderful reason to create a programming language. Pandas in particular is basically a port of, you know, R's functionality, the language R, into Python. And I'm glad it exists, because otherwise dealing with tables in Python would be rough. It would not be very easy. But when I'm using pandas, I'm often like, man, I wish I had all the stuff that R has. My experience with it. Could I share the GitHub link? Yeah, it is. I'll pull it up on and share it in the chat. It is all open sourced, and I think I've pushed the most recent version to GitHub because the last thing we did was upgrade to 2.0. Yeah, dialect quick spot. There we go. So pop that in the chat. Hairson says, can working with numbers please be the next video? I know you've asked for that so much. I know that it would be very helpful. If we get, next Friday, if we get Rasa X all up and working and good to go, then we can spend the rest of the video working on the numbers as input. I'm going to have to spend a little bit of time figuring it out because I've never done it before, but I'm going to put that down as a solid maybe. How's that? So next week, I'm not going to be in on Wednesday. I will be feeling my emotions. On Thursday, we're going to have a paper reading group, paper TBD, because we finished the last paper in one session, which is great. It was a really good paper. We did it yesterday. I really enjoyed it. And then on Friday, we will be back with live coding. And then next Wednesday, November 11th, in this time slot, Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, we're going to be starting Rasa office hours. So it's going to be me and it's going to be somebody else from the Rasa team, and we're just going to be answering your questions. And that's the whole hour, and that's all we're going to be doing. So if you've got questions like deployment questions, you know, how do I do X, any of that stuff, that'll be the dedicated space to ask that. And that should be every Wednesday, you know, barring holidays / people not being available. So brand new thing. You're hearing about it here first. I'm very excited. I hope that we'll be able to give you a better answer than me, like, you know, typing and working on my thing and being like, oh, you should use an FAQ or whatever. So thanks for joining, everybody. I hope you have a great Halloween if you celebrate, a good weekend. If you're in the US, please vote. And I will see you all next Thursday.